In this video, I'm going to show you how I made the Greek key that goes on my little Greek vase called a lekathos. In ancient Greece, these little vases were used to store olive oil and other valuable oils. So when I wanted to make this, I wanted a Greek key design that was something different. So I went on the internet and I found a stencil of a Greek key. And I tried to replicate that for this project. So in this video, I'm going to show you how I did that. So it was a challenge to figure it out, but I think it was pretty successful. So please stay tuned and watch the video, and I'll show you how I made my Greek key. This is the design for the feature ring. It's going to be a Greek key design. The black or the colored in parts are going to be ebony, and the lighter parts are going to be holly. And then there'll be a holly strip on either side of the feature ring to tie it all together. These pieces, let's see if I can draw some spots in here. This piece and this piece will be spacers between the pieces of the feature ring. So we need to divide this up somehow so that we can cut the parts. So the first part I'm going to cut is, or first line I'm going to make is a line there. So this will be a piece here. That'll be one. And then we can go ahead and make another piece over here. So this one would be two. And then we can go down. If my pen all right, we could do three. And then 4, 5, 6, and then this one would be 7. So that takes care of the white pieces, or the holly pieces. So for the ebony, we could make this part 8, and then we can do this part here would be 9, 10, and make this piece, let's see, we'll make this piece 11. This piece here will be 11. And we got 12 and 13. So there's 13 pieces in the each piece of the feature ring. Like I said, these two are spacers. So now that we have an idea of how they're laid out, we can go ahead and figure out how it is to cut them. I want each of these, the black, the ebony, and the holly, to be about 1/8 of an inch. I learned doing some test pieces that while it might be close, it's not exactly 1/8 of an inch. So if I set the sled or the stop block on my sled to 3/8 of an inch or whatever, they don't line up exactly. So what I did was, and this is going to be difficult probably to see, but I just really need to count the number of pieces that are in each one. So for example, this number 2 right here goes from there to there. So I have 1 there, 1 there, and 1 there. So this is really 3 pieces wide. So no matter how thick the pieces are, if I use some of the samples to set the stop block and use 3 of them, this piece will be as wide as it needs to be. This one with 2, it's basically, or this number 4 here, is basically 2 pieces wide. So I'll just set that stop block for 2 pieces, and then 4 and 5 will be able to cut that. So some of these are 3, 6, 3, 2, are 3 pieces wide, and then some of them are 2 pieces wide. This is probably clear as mud, but maybe I can make some sense when I do it. Now these bottom pieces, they're going to be like this bottom number 13. It's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, plus the width of this holly outside piece. So I just need to use those pieces to set the sled up. What I'm going to do is these holly pieces on the outside and these 2 top and bottom ebony pieces are going to be thicker than everything else, because I need some spot to trim to make the segments, and I need some extra material on the top and bottom so I can flatten the ring once it's done. So I'm sure that was confusing, but I think the point of it is not to necessarily measure the pieces. It's actually to use the pieces to set the stop block up. That way everything will come out even and you won't have any gaps, because these have to match exactly in the center. Otherwise it's going to have some gaps and it's not going to go together right. So, well, here's the stock for our feature ring. I've gone ahead and milled it up. I got some holly and some ebony. You're going to need some 1/2 inch thick holly, which I have here. We're going to need some 1/4 inch ebony, which I have here. And this is 1/8 inch stock. I got enough for, got 4 pieces of that. I got plenty for the ebony because I wasn't quite sure how much I needed, so I milled up some extra stock. This should be enough to make our feature ring. So I didn't show any of the milling process, but it's pretty typical stuff. I resawed it on the bandsaw and then run it through the drum sander to get it to the thicknesses that I want. So these are about 1/8 of an inch, as close as you can get them. So we're going to go ahead, and this the stock we're going to use to make our feature ring. Some of the parts for this feature ring are going to be very narrow, so I went ahead and built a little sled that I can use to cut those narrow parts with. It's just a piece of 3/8 inch Baltic birch. I got a little brace in the front, and then some MDF and a maple fence on the front here. This is kind of a blade guard to keep the hands away from the blade, and then I got a hold down to help hold the pieces down. So what I do is I set up a stop block for however long I wanted the piece to be, and then I put my piece in, and some of it, the 1/8 inch stuff, is very thin, and we're only cutting it maybe 1/4 of an inch wide. So, and then I put the stop block down on the piece and hold it down like that, and then cut it. And it does a pretty good job of holding everything where it needs to be so that it doesn't, what I found is if I didn't use this stop block, the piece when I cut it would get caught in a blade and fly all over the shop. So this does a good job of holding everything down. So let's go ahead, and that's the fence. Is pretty, or the sled is pretty straightforward. I just used a couple of PVC runners on the bottom to fit in the miter slot. Screwed them on. Fits in there pretty good. No wobble. It's a little tight, but not too bad. So, all right. So that's the sled. We're going to go ahead and start cutting the pieces. Let me show what I was trying to explain in the last clip. I don't think I did a very good job of it. So if I want to cut my pieces on this, my little small part sled, what I do is I've got a piece that's almost the same thickness as the saw kerf. I put a little piece of tape on the back of it just to make sure that it's a nice tight fit. So I put that in there, slide it up to the top there. And if I want to cut a piece that's 3 pieces wide, I have these 3 pieces of my stock here. These are scrap pieces, and they're all the same thickness. So what I would do is I'd put those 3 pieces up against that little stop there. Bring up my stop block, put it up against them, and then put a clamp on it and tighten that up. Okay, once I got that in here, I can take those 3 pieces out, and I can take out my little spacer. Take that out. And I can bring my stock up. I found that it's okay to cut more than one piece. I tried cutting these without something holding them down, and the pieces would just fly all over the shop. So I got a little stop block here that I put, or a little hold down block that I put on it. Put the clamp on it and clamp it down, make sure everything's lined up and against the fence, and go ahead and make that cut. So what I wind up with is a couple of pieces that are, I can get these pieces over here. 3 pieces that are exactly, I wind up with a piece that's exactly the width of the thickness of these 3 pieces. So if I put that up there, line it up, and you can't see that, but I can feel that it's exactly the same. So when I'm making my part, or making my ring, if I need a piece that's 3 pieces wide, I got one, I can put it in there, and it'll go in there like that. So that's how I cut the pieces. So if I wanted one 2 pieces wide, I would just make it use 2. If it's 5 pieces, I put 5 pieces in it. So it would be whatever the width of the piece of the feature ring is, that's what I would put in there to cut the piece. So hopefully that makes some kind of sense. All right, here's the pieces for our feature ring. I got some bigger holly pieces in the back here. They're going to go around the outside edges. And this one is some larger pieces of ebony, and then some small pieces of holly. And in this one, the ebony and the holly are cut to the same size. So there's just a bunch of pieces there. I got enough pieces to make 14 rings, or 14 segments. I only need 12, but I make a couple extra just for using it as a test piece, and in case one of them or 2 of them don't come out exactly the way I want it. So I picked the 12 best. So, all right, now that we got the pieces cut, we can go ahead and start to glue these things up. All right, I want to show you how I put one of these feature ring pieces together. You'll have to excuse my voice. It's springtime in the Carolinas, and the pollen's been extremely bad this year, so I'm having a little bit of an allergy problem, but we can get through this. What I did was I just took some pieces of MDF and made a jig that's got a right angle on it. I got a stop block with some, and I put some green frog tape on it to keep the pieces from gluing to the jig. I got a stop block that's square on the end, and I got some frog tape on that as well. I'm just going to clamp that onto here so we can build our piece in this corner right here. Each piece has 13 pieces of various sizes. So we're going to go ahead and start with one of the ebony pieces. Now I padded the side out here with a little bit of tape on this piece and on this piece right here. They didn't exactly meet up where I wanted them, so it's no harm in doing that because, excuse me, the outside edges are all going to be trimmed off anyway. So the first piece is to put that piece of ebony down in there like that. Then I put a piece of holly up this way. And it's just a matter of following the plan or the drawing. And then we put a piece of holly there and another piece of ebony. Start to form our piece in the center there. And then I need one of the smaller pieces to go alongside here. So we'll put that there. And then I need a couple of more pieces to go this way. So we put an ebony piece there, and a holly piece here, and another one of the small pieces goes across right there. So that's where we are so far. Now we need another piece of, oops, drop that piece. Need another piece of ebony to go up this way. And then one to go across here. And then this piece. Now sometimes the center pieces to me are what's key here because those aren't going to get trimmed. This piece and this piece are going to get trimmed. So we really need some tight joints in the inside here. So if you need to sand one of them a little bit to make sure that they all come together, that's all right to do that. They're not going to change the dimension all that much. So then we'll put another piece of holly there. And the last piece of ebony goes on there. So there's our design built in our little jig here. So what I do, just to make sure everything's fitting right, put a clamp across it this way, loosely, and put another clamp this way and squeeze everything together. So I can tell by looking at it, which I'm sure is hard for you to see, or impossible to see probably, that all the joints are fitting tight. There's a little bit of a gap there, but that's just on the end where I trimmed off the fuzzies. So that fits all nice and tight. So we're going to go ahead then and take that apart and put some glue on it. All right, we're going to glue up this piece. I'm just using Titebond 3, the ultimate glue, mainly because that's what I have. So I bought it for another project, so we'll use it on this one as well. And squeeze some out here on our piece of wax paper. And then it's just a matter of gluing these things up, putting glue on the right sides of it here. So put some glue on the face of this one. Way it's supposed to be. That looks good. All right, so I'll let that set in the clamp for a little while, and then I'll take it out and go on to the next one. If you do that, then you wind up with a piece like this. And we put the two of them together and put a spacer between them, cut them into segments, and then we'll have our feature ring. So it's a tedious process, but it pays off in the end. I have a couple pieces of MDF screwed together in an L shape with some double thick tape on it. I need to clean up the faces of these pieces, so when I put them on the sled and cut them into segments, I have a nice square face. Once I have the pieces stuck down, I go ahead and run them through the saw and clean up that one face. Once that's done, I take them off, put new tape on, and turn them around and clean up the other side. All right, it's time to cut our pieces into segments. I've taken all the pieces and marked the center line on them. It's probably hard to see. I used a white pencil so I could see the mark on the ebony. So I got all those marked. And I've taken my 3 test pieces and I've cut them till I am happy with the final result. This outside edge piece is just a little over 3/16, almost not quite a 1/4 of an inch wide. The thing about it is, if you cut it exactly to the size you need, as you can see, this piece tapers. So if we turn it and make it smaller, then what's going to happen is it's just going to keep getting smaller and smaller. Then it won't match the width of the other pieces. So you need to cut this extra wide so that when you put it together and start turning the diameter down, that it'll get down to where it's the same width as the others. So that's what I did. It took a little bit of fussing to get it to that size, but I have it finally the way I want it. So we're going to go ahead and cut those. What I've done is I'm going to use the wedgie sled, and let me back up a little bit here. We're going to use the wedgie sled, and what I've done, I've taken and made a mark right here, and that's where the center line of the piece goes. So what I'll do is I'll put that on there, and it's kind of tricky, but if you're careful, you put that on there, and then I'll put a clamp on this side of it, and hold it on there. And then I trim one edge off, and it gives me the width that I want of the piece. And then what I have up here on this side of the wedgie sled is I took a piece of MDF, I cut it the angle, flipped it over, and then have it clamped down there so that when I put this piece back up here like this and put this clamp down on it, it'll cut the opposite edge of the segment. So being that I have 12 segments, I used a 30, 60, 90 triangle to set this inside angle here, which is what you do with the wedgie sled. So pretty happy with the way that come out. So we're going to go ahead and get set up and cut the 12 segments, and then we'll put them together and see if they form a ring. Well, here's my ring. I got it glued up. I didn't get a perfect fit. There's no such thing as almost perfect on this stuff, so I had to go ahead and glue it up using a half ring method, and then I'll clean up the joint and put the ring together. It was a little disappointing because I did make a test ring just to make sure I knew what I was doing, and this one is maple and walnut, and it went together perfect right off the saw. So I guess it was a little, it was a little difficult to keep everything exactly the way that it needed to be to get perfect cuts, but it was very, very close, but close wasn't good enough. So we'll go ahead and clean this these joint up between these two, and then glue them together, and then we'll have our final ring. I have the ring glued together now, and I have it in my large jaws. I'm going to use a scraper to clean up the face before we move on to the next step. I have a 2-inch Forstner bit and a Jacob's chuck, and we're just going to go ahead and drill a 2-inch hole into the bottom of this piece here. I'm going about 1/4 of an inch deep. I have the glue block on the lathe now, so what I'm using is the same 2-inch Forstner bit, and I'm just going to touch it to the glue block to make an impression so I know where to turn it down to. So we have a 10 and it'll fit in that recess we cut in the feature ring. Now it's just a matter of turning the waste block down till we get a tenon that fits snugly in that recess on the feature ring. Once we do that, we can go ahead and glue the feature ring to the waste block, and that's going to have everything centered up. Well, now that we had it glued on, we can go ahead and turn it round. I'm just using a parting tool to do that. I really didn't need to take off that much material. Once we get it round, we can measure the diameter and use that diameter in the calculation for the rest of the rings in this project. Here's the finished piece ready to be incorporated into our project. Yeah, anytime you do something for the first time, you always come up with some things you could have done different. I think on this particular one thing I would have done better would have been doing a little bit better job of making up some kind of clamping jig to clamp the pieces together once I got all that glue on them. I had a couple of the pieces I didn't use that were had some gaps in that center section, so they were rejected, but then again, that's why you make more pieces than you need, I suppose. Overall, I'm pleased with the way it came out. I'm looking forward to incorporating it into the finished piece and see how it all comes together. Well, that's how I made the Greek key that goes in my little vase. It certainly was a challenge, but I think it came out pretty nice. I'm sure parts of the video weren't all that clear. It was I was learning as I went along, so probably my explanation wasn't all that clear in some spots. So if you have any questions, please go ahead and leave them in the comments, and I'd be happy to answer them for you. So that's the feature ring part of this little project. So I have another video where I put the whole project together, so I'd invite you to go ahead and watch that. I thank you for watching this video, and if you haven't already, please go ahead and subscribe.